moved up here. I did move out here from Saskatoon 2.5 years ago. The winters there were getting kind of cool for us. And while I was there, as Tree said, I taught high school. I had a number of careers. I used to quit perfectly good jobs, as my mother told her friends. And my final job was teaching career and academic readiness to some at-risk grade 9 youth who were doing the transition into high school. While I was there, of course, when you're studying education, you learn an awful lot about what motivates people. You've got a hard crew to motivate. They're there because the law says they need to be there. And so we spend a lot of time learning about motivation. The reason we moved out here was partly for the weather, but also my husband was starting his own business. So I left teaching and found myself the head of sales and marketing at my husband's company. And so the first thing I did was go on to the internet to find out what on earth someone who's in charge of sales and marketing should be doing. And I found out that you need to be networking. All of these skills I've been trying to teach my students in career ed, a lot of those pertain to starting your own business. But the key piece that was missing for me as a teacher, and I think is still lacking in education, we're kind of slow in education and in business world to catch up, was that I learned how powerful some of these free and low cost and very accessible online tools are. And then I discovered that, there is a word for all of this, and it's called personal branding. And this is actually halfway through my talk. Can we back up at all? Back. Oh, there's my disclaimer. Warning. Okay, don't look at this, because it's going to be a funny joke in a minute. All right. So what was really missing was all of these free and online low-cost tools and how powerful those things can be. One thing we need to know when we're in the world of work is that we're very picky about terminology. Oh, there we go. In the world of work and career ed, work is not a four-letter word. Work is something that comes from your heart and you're passionate about. So really, in the popular culture, we often use work to be, you have to work hard and do better, and it's negative. But work isn't a four-letter word. So the quote here is, real success is finding your life work in the work that you love. Compared in contrast to job. In the world of career ed and education, job is a four-letter word. Many people have heard the acronym just over broke to describe a job. This guy sums it up, although the smile on his face leads me to believe that perhaps he doesn't really hate his job. He looks too happy. You might have a job if you talk about an awful lot about hating your job, or if there seems to be an increasing number of people who fall into the category of not liking their work, where they're suffering from a whole lot of stress-related illnesses, depression. I know some people have spoken in the past few days, I've heard talking about the increase of alcohol consumption and the taking of antidepressants. I had some technical issues here. Yes, it's a Mac. This is very uncharacteristic for Macintosh computers. All right, so the next slide is the warning or the disclaimer. And what I'm hoping to do in this talk tonight is that if people feel there's a little niggling feeling inside of themselves that's telling them that there's a disconnect there and that maybe they're unhappy with their jobs and they've been fighting to hold that back, you need to know that with a lot of the career ed, what we know about motivation, what we now can use for online tools to really connect and make a community and get your message out there to your channel, that it's safe for your niggly feeling. It's safe for that niggly feeling to come out. All right. We know the world of work is broken when what I like to think about it is when you see some of these things in the news, these have been some fairly recent events. Career Builder put out a survey in February, and it made the national news that 20% of us are late to work at least once during the week. And my first thought was, really? Only 20%? But it made all over the news. Similarly, the first week in January is traditionally the time of year when most people are absent from work. And the news reports were fairly negative about this. And instead of saying, hey, why are people away? What's causing all this stress? What would make people want to leave work or not be there? What can we do to fix it? They didn't. The focus was on what can we do to make sure that people aren't abusing the system, they're not going for too much counseling, they're not taking too many mental health days, that we can track their sick days and do something to them to make them stop. All right, so we need a new perspective, clearly. It's not so much that we have an issue, but it's how do we handle the problem? So what if work was something that we wanted to do? What if employers and employees started to think like they were on the same team, that we were working together, that an employer wasn't really a jailer in a similar way that a teacher tends to think that they're the jailer over the kids? So that led me to create a personal-brandifesto after saying we all need to work together. Now, I'm not going to punch people. But what I learned about personal branding was that it can be quite empowering. And so the first component of my personal-brandifesto is to flip the tables on work, to go back to thinking that we are human beings, not human resources. There was a time before corporations and companies got really big that people clubbed together to put their skills together so they could take advantage of the synergy in the group. I like to write. My friend Diane likes to make websites. She can make all kinds of websites with no content, and I can write all kinds of great content with no website and our message won't get out. But if we're working together, then we can make something great happen. And that's what I think we need to go back to, is treating people more like people for their skills. I'd like to even up the ante and say we have a right and a responsibility to ourselves, our families, and our communities to find or create work that's right for us. You think of the flip side of that. If people aren't happy in their work, if you're unhappy yourself and you're starting to have issues with other people and you're starting to go down into having addiction problems, you're not of any help to yourself or your family or your community. Apologies to people who have been in education or sociology or psychology since 1954 and have been subjected to Maslow's hierarchy of needs in the past, but it's something that we need to look at. Maslow was a psychologist, and this is his hierarchy. And basically what he is saying is that people have, he called the bottom level deficiency needs. So if you're deficient in any of these things in sort of the red, orange, yellowish areas, you're going to need to spend an awful lot of time and energy in your life looking after those things. If you're in that area, you don't have a lot of time. You don't have the freedom to be making moral or ethical choices. You are just surviving. It's like you're in survival mode. And it's no coincidence that having a job is right in the center there, near to the bottom. As you move up the hierarchy, then you get looking at how you can self-actualize. And that's where now we're thinking about work. So people who have all the bottom parts looked after and who are moving up the hierarchy, if you're familiar with the work of Daniel Pink, he talks about what motivates people. And external motivators like rewards or salaries or grades motivate people in certain tasks that don't require a whole lot of higher thinking, and only for short periods of time. And after that, they start to demotivate people. And so if you move your way up into a place where you're working, if you're going to a McJob and you're someone who's getting close to self-actualizing, you're going to start asking a lot of questions why. And that's where the work of Simon Sinek comes in. Simon Sinek has a book called Start With Why. And I've used this graphic on this particular slide because he pictures it as this sort of target shape, where your core values and why what you're doing is in the center. How you do things and how you live your life and what you do flow out naturally from there. So in personal branding, the personal-brandifesto helps people who need to look for work or to market themselves. That's their why. It's, you know what, I'm a human being and I have a right. It gives people a feeling of being able to walk into a job interview, say, more on an even keel with an employer. And that's the how. And then the personal, whatever you want to do, play the cello, play the flute, be an engineer, that's everybody's individual what. So I'll leave people with this quote from Howard Thurman. And when I say a new perspective on work, Howard Thurman was an American civil rights activist and author from the 30s. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. And then go and do that. Because what the world needs are people who are truly alive.